welcome back to my channel. Today I am in Kawasaki National Park. If you don't know me, this is my channel, welcome. I talk about all sorts of stuff on here, whatever springs to mind. Sometimes I talk about veganism or feminism. Those are topics that I'm very interested in, but it definitely basically changes on a week-to-week basis. So if you're interested in ramblings of all kinds and brain farts and stuff like that, stay and have a watch. So a while back, I think it's actually like half a year ago or maybe even a year ago, I did something for a while and I called it unofficially for myself, I called it Bubbles. And basically what it was short videos where I would talk about something that I'd been thinking about, and it wouldn't really have any sort of conclusion, but it would just be sort of brain farts, basically just food for thought. So what I wanted to do today is another one of those, because something that I've been thinking about recently, and I think this sort of started in the weeks leading up to my trip, is I call this ethics versus antics. And by that I mean your values versus the things that you do or that you would like to do. Basically the question is, how far should our quest to be a good person and to be better for the world go in terms of how much should it influence our lives? Because obviously it should still be a maintainable thing and you shouldn't start to hate it at some point. And because I think everyone sort of has an innate urge to be good, and depending on how much they know and how much they want to, like, are willing to know, they act on that. For example, I'm vegan, that's the thing. I found out information and ultimately I decided that the inconvenience for me wasn't big enough compared to what value it would bring into the world, pretty much. There is a lot of numbers surrounding veganism, but I should just blurt a screenshot in here because there's like huge numbers that you save in a day, but in a year as well. So the amount of difference that I could make just by eliminating animal products, the amount of difference that I could make by making this switch, for me was more important and or bigger than the inconvenience that it would bring me, especially considering the health aspects of veganism. So for me that ultimately ended up, there wasn't really a way to justify it anymore, so I figured it's better, I'll do it, kind of deal. But I was talking about this with my uncle and aunt a few days before I left, because I was having drinks with them, and I was talking about how there's a lot of stuff that contains animal products. For example, how you sometimes have like those cocktail nuts with like a little shell around them, and then they put whey in that, which I really don't understand, just like with paprika chips and stuff like that, and it's really annoying. And we were talking about how sometimes it's difficult, but pretty much my conclusion was sometimes it is, but ultimately what I have to go through to do this is much smaller than, for example, what a cow has to go through in order to give us milk. Coming back to this, I have this sort of strange, I guess you could call it a hobby, but with a fair regularity I tend to rewatch sort of environmental and vegan nutritional documentaries that I've watched before. For example, Forks Over Knives or Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. Those are a few favorites, but also Cowspiracy, for example. And I was watching Cowspiracy. I was thinking about how to make that movie. He took his old van out of retirement when something he did for the environment was cycle everywhere. And I was thinking, this is a really small thing and it's actually not that significant, I would say. So it doesn't really go for that. But I was thinking about how, for example, my trip, it's not exactly good for the environment to fly, considering the amounts of black smoke coming from the cars here. I'm assuming it's not very sustainable to travel here at all unless you take a bike. So my trip in that sense is not very sustainable. But by making this trip I might learn things about myself and experience things that might help me in other ways, and that's also valuable. And I never even really stopped to think about that. And also, for example, comparing the amount of emissions and the amount of waste that I'm producing on this trip, because everything here is also plastic, so that's also quite tricky. I'm producing a lot of emissions and waste while I'm here. But I'm also vegan, by which I am reducing my emissions, for example, and my water use. So it's sort of a balance, and I was thinking about where the line should be drawn, like what is okay to do for your own pleasure, for example, and what is not, and what is like worthwhile enough. Another example would be that recently I read an article on how unsustainable it is to have kids. Is it still as unsustainable if you raise a kid to have good values? Is that still as unsustainable? Because yes, our emissions as people will remain the same, but if you have a ripple effect, aren't you more of value to the planet? So those are the kinds of things that I've been thinking about. They're kind of tricky, I guess. Maybe one day I will find answers for myself, but for now, what I think is I do a really good thing by being a vegan, but I shouldn't just continually pat myself on the back for that and don't do anything else. I should always strive to be better, just like everyone else, and always strive to learn more, because by learning you grow, and growing is good. So I think that it's not wrong of me to make this trip, because I think I will get a lot out of it. I feel like the lessons I learn on the road will be of value for me as well as for the others in my surroundings. I think that sort of justifies it, but I'm not sure. I also haven't looked up exact emissions from planes and everything, but just some food for thought. I think I'll leave it here because I'm just sort of getting into knots with my own thoughts and words. But I wanted to share this, and yeah, I'll see you next week.